World War II saw some of the most advanced and powerful tanks ever built, and none struck fear into Allied forces quite like the German Panzers. These armored beasts, with their thick armor and devastating firepower, tore through Allied lines, striking fear into all who faced them. In 1944, as the brutal fighting on the Western Front raged on, American forces found themselves up against this relentless enemy. The U.S. Army deployed every weapon in their arsenal, from Sherman tanks to the tank destroyers, to combat the might of the Panzers. But at times, an unexpected ally appeared from the skies above, the Piper L-4 Grasshopper. This lightweight, unarmed prop plane wasn't built for battle. Designed as a simple observation and reconnaissance aircraft, it was meant to spot enemy positions, not engage them. Yet, as German tanks continued to push forward, desperation led to a daring solution, mounting 6M1 bazookas to the wings of the Piper L-4, transforming it into a low-flying, tank-hunting menace. With bazookas in place, the Grasshopper's mission became clear: take down the Panzers by striking where they were most vulnerable, their thinner top armor. But as this nimble plane swooped into the heart of battle, one question remained. Could such a tiny aircraft, armed with nothing but handheld anti-tank rockets, really turn the tide against Germany's steel juggernauts? Join us as we explore the design features, tactics, and exploits of the daring pilots who took this remarkable machine into the skies. The Piper L-4 Grasshopper, originally known as the Piper J-3 Cub, first took flight in 1938. Though small, slow, and simple, these light aircraft quickly earned a reputation for their exceptional handling and reliability. Built with a fabric-covered steel frame, the Grasshopper seemed almost too fragile for the rigors of war, yet it was so dependable that many are still flown today, decades after their introduction. When the United States entered World War II, the Civil Air Patrol quickly embraced the Piper Cub as a spotter aircraft. Shipped in large numbers to Britain, the plane was used for everything from reconnaissance missions to ferrying important personnel. It wasn't a war machine in the traditional sense, but its versatility made it invaluable to the Allied effort. The L-4 Grasshopper was nearly identical to its civilian counterpart, except for one crucial upgrade: a plexiglass skylight and rear windows that gave the pilot better visibility. Though small, with room for just one pilot and a passenger, this aircraft could fly at a leisurely 85 miles per hour, loiter in the air for up to 3 hours, and soar as high as 12,000 feet. Its incredibly low stall speed of just 38 miles per hour allowed it to patrol slowly and precisely, making it perfect for reconnaissance and artillery spotting. Despite often being overloaded with a pilot, an observer, and a heavy 25-pound radio, the Grasshopper rose to the occasion, proving time and time again that it was more than capable of its role. Painted in olive drab, it transformed from a humble civilian plane into a wartime workhorse, spotting enemy positions, transporting the wounded, delivering supplies, and providing critical intel to ground forces. However, the Grasshopper's moment of glory arrived when daring pilots mounted bazooka launchers onto the aircraft, transforming it into an unlikely tank hunter. One of the most legendary pilots to embrace the daring tactic of mounting bazookas on the Piper L-4 Grasshopper was Major Charles Carpenter, famously known as Bazooka Charlie. Carpenter enlisted in 1942, shortly after the U.S. entered World War II, and was assigned as a Grasshopper pilot. Serving as an artillery spotter for the 4th Armored Division under General George Patton's Third Army, His job was to fly low over enemy lines, locate German artillery positions, and relay critical information to ground forces. When he arrived in France in 1944, the skies above the battlefield offered a relative sense of safety. German forces rarely fired at these unarmed scout planes to avoid revealing their positions. However, as the war intensified, Carpenter's frustration with his passive role grew. While his recon missions were crucial, Carpenter longed to join the fight more directly. It was during this time in Europe that he heard stories of other L-4 pilots modifying their planes by mounting infantry bazookas. Inspired by these daring innovations, Carpenter decided to follow suit. With the help of an ordnance technician and a crew chief, Carpenter armed his Grasshopper with 6 M1A1 bazookas, securing them to the wing struts of his aircraft. He affectionately named his plane Rosie the Rocketer. The bazookas were wired into the cockpit, allowing Carpenter to fire them individually or all at once with a flip of a switch. Each bazooka fired a single rocket-propelled grenade, capable of penetrating up to 3 inches of armor, just enough to take out a German tank if hit from above, where their armor was thinnest. From that moment on, Carpenter's missions took on a new purpose. Armed with 6 bazookas and a fearless spirit, Bazooka Charlie transformed his light recon plane into an unlikely tank killer, flying low and fast, hunting for German armor to destroy. Carpenter's first kill came quickly, eliminating a German armored car before upgrading some of his bazookas to the more capable M9 platform, which could fire the M6A3 high-explosive anti-tank rounds. He'd need to go after bigger prey. His exploits became the stuff of legend, proving that with a bit of ingenuity, even the smallest aircraft could take on the might of the German war machine. On September 18, 1944, the German army massed an impressive force of 262 tanks and armored artillery to launch an assault on the U.S. 4th Armored Division near Ericourt in France. Despite being outnumbered, the 4th Armored Division held its ground, but they were up against a formidable enemy. Among the German ranks were the newly deployed Panther tanks, far superior to the American M4 Shermans in both firepower and frontal armor. For nearly 11 grueling days, the two sides clashed amidst poor weather conditions, which grounded Allied air support and made the battle even more intense. Then, on September 20th, the Germans launched a new advance, this time targeting the American headquarters and support elements. Though not a massive assault, it had the potential to be devastating, as the Germans aimed for a vulnerable part of the American force. High above the battlefield, Major Charles Carpenter circled in his Piper L-4 Grasshopper, Rosie the Rocketer, struggling to make out the positions below due to the lingering bad weather. But just as the Germans were closing in, the weather began to clear around noon, and Carpenter saw his chance. Spotting a company of Panthers advancing on the town, Carpenter dove into action. Flying low and slow over the battlefield, and under heavy ground fire, he made several daring passes, firing his bazookas directly at the tanks. Unfazed by the risk, Carpenter flew back to base twice to reload, determined to stop the German advance. By the end of his relentless assault, he had fired at least 16 bazooka rockets, scoring 2 confirmed Panther kills and destroying several armored cars. Carpenter's gallantry in combat and his unconventional yet effective attacks forced the Germans to halt their advance on Ericourt that day, buying the American forces critical time and potentially saving the headquarters from destruction. His daring exploits once again proved that even the most unlikely weapons and the boldest of pilots could make a world of difference in the chaos of war. As Major Charles Carpenter's exploits gained fame, The Germans quickly caught on to the threat posed by the seemingly harmless Piper L-4 Grasshopper buzzing overhead. What they had once dismissed as just another scout plane was now an unexpected menace, capable of destroying their vehicles with deadly precision. Before long, whenever Bazooka Charlie appeared in the sky, the Germans unleashed everything they had, hoping to bring down the daring pilot who had turned their tanks into his targets. Carpenter himself acknowledged the shift in their tactics. Word must be getting around among those krauts to watch out for cubs with bazookas on them, he said. Every time I show up now, they shoot with everything they have. They never used to bother cubs. Bazookas must be bothering them a bit. Despite the barrage of ground fire, Carpenter was undeterred. His tactics were as bold as they were risky. He would dive his tiny aircraft directly at German tanks, flying just 100 meters off the ground before firing his bazookas. Then, with the enemy's guns blazing, he'd pull up sharply, hoping to escape the danger zone before the concentrated fire could bring him down. The Germans might have been catching on, but Carpenter's audacious strikes continued to disrupt their operations and inflict real damage, cementing his reputation as one of the most fearless pilots of the war. Major Carpenter's unconventional tactics would eventually earn him credit for destroying 6 enemy tanks during World War II, including 2 of Germany's formidable Tiger I tanks. His boldness in the skies earned him yet another nickname, the Mad Major. Although Carpenter had been inspired by other scout pilots who had also mounted bazookas to their planes, his success in taking on heavily armored vehicles was unmatched. His victories inspired others in the artillery, scout, and reconnaissance ranks to try their hand at the tactic. However, flying headlong into German small arms fire proved too dangerous for most. According to wartime press reports, many pilots found out quickly that diving frail aircraft into a hail of enemy fire was extremely unhealthy, and they soon returned to their observation roles, leaving Carpenter as the undisputed master of this daring method of combat. While these tiny planes didn't win the battle on their own, their role as low-flying tank hunters is a testament to the resourcefulness of the American military during World War II. Against all odds, the Piper L-4 Grasshopper, armed with nothing more than a few bazookas and piloted by daring men like Major Carpenter, proved that even the smallest weapon could make a big difference in the fight against the armored giants of the German army. In a war of titanic machines, it was often the most unexpected innovations that changed the course of history, and the Piper L-4 Grasshopper, with its bazookas blazing, earned its place among the legends of World War II.